Hello, welcome to the Distractables, where we come together to chat about our ADHD journey, as well as practical ADHD tricks and hacks to get through daily life. I'm your co-host, Marie Ng. I'm the founder of Llama Life, which is a routines app for ADHD. And I'm here with my co-host, Jesse J. Anderson.
Hey, I'm Jesse. I'm the author of Extra Focus, and I'm really excited for the topic we're going to dive into today.
Yeah, same here. So we're going to be talking about diet and nutrition, specifically for people with ADHD. And we're here with Rebecca King, who is a registered dietitian nutritionist and a certified intuitive eating counselor from Charlotte, North Carolina. Becca, welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to chat with you guys today.
We are so excited to have you here as well. I have so many questions about diet, and you obviously have ADHD as well.
Yes.
And I guess maybe we should start with your ADHD journey. What's your story? How did you get diagnosed, and why are you focusing on diet and nutrition?
Yeah. Before I got diagnosed with ADHD, I actually had an eating disorder. And I didn't really connect any of that to ADHD at the time. But then I got to college. I feel like a similar story to a lot of women that I know that have ADHD, where I did well in school, in high school and all of that. And then I got to college and I struggled in every area of my life and everything was way harder. And my roommate, who's now my best friend, had ADHD and we were like two peas in a pod. So by my sophomore year of college, I brought it up to my therapist. I was like, I think we need to explore this because I couldn't keep up with anything and I had to work way harder than everyone else. I went to a big football school in the South, so that's a big thing here, and I would have to miss football games because I'd have to be in the library studying on the weekend and all these kind of things. So I was like, this shouldn't be like this. And that's when I got diagnosed, and then my eating disorder morphed from being anorexic to binge eating, and then I started to really start noticing some of the connections between ADHD and food. And I got into this work accidentally, honestly. I didn't think when I was becoming a dietitian that I would work with ADHDers, but then I was starting to think about my space in the intuitive eating world. I'm in two different niches of intuitive eating and then ADHD stuff. And I was like, who's my ideal client? Who do I want to work with? And I was like, oh my gosh, there's this whole space of nutrition that is not being touched on, especially for adults with ADHD. And I was working with a really good friend who also had ADHD, and she was struggling with the same cycle I struggled with in grad school, which was not eating enough and my meds, and then binging at night when they would wear off. And I was like, I'm going to be a dietitian. I need to figure this out. And then I saw this pattern in my friend, and then a Facebook support group for women with ADHD. I was like, hey, can I do a poll, a survey in your group just to see what other women with ADHD are struggling with? And every single person clicked binge eating on the survey that I did. And I was like, wow, there is these huge overlaps between these things and nobody's really talking about it. And it was the beginning of the pandemic at the time, so I had a lot of free time to just hyper focus and learn a lot more about ADHD beyond just my own personal experience. And yeah, that's how I got here.
As you were talking, Jesse and I just nodding our heads because it's such an interesting topic, and I never made the connection between diet, binge eating, and ADHD either. When I was younger, I went through a little phase of kind of binge eating as well.
Yeah.
It didn't develop into any sort of full-blown disorder, but I definitely would come home from school and just eat. I don't know. It was just crazy, just to eat junk food and then just feel horrible afterwards. And as an adult now, I don't do that as much, but I definitely have a thing where I'm too hyper-focused and I just forget to eat.
Yep.
I'm not on any ADHD meds at the moment. I used to be, but they don't really agree with me. But when I was on meds, I totally forgot to eat. I wasn't hungry. That's the problem. I just didn't have any appetite.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I was extra focused.
So yeah, you're well, I'm good. You don't need to eat.
Yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm getting dopamine. I'm feeling like I'm very productive. I just want to stay in this flow because who knows when I'll get it back.
Yep.
And taking care of myself and eating and even drinking water was just a secondary thought.
Yeah.
Going to the bathroom. I can't count the number of times I've had to run to the bathroom because I'm just so desperate that I've forgotten to do it.
Yeah.
that I just have to run there. Did you have any similar experience, Jesse?
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I was nodding along with all of that stuff because, yeah, the hyper focusing, forgetting everything, which includes all the like signals from my body. Hey, you should eat some food. Hey, you should drink some water. You should go to the bathroom. I don't hear any of that. And so that definitely becomes a problem. Suddenly, it's like I come out of the haze and then I'm like, oh my gosh, all the alarm bells are going off in my body that I need to do all this stuff that I didn't realize was building up. And yeah, I'm not currently taking any medication, but when I was, appetite suppressant is one of the most common side effects.
Yep.
And that definitely was the case for me too. Hyperfocus mixed with that little bit of appetite suppressant was like I would have no food at all. And then the other problem happens, the binge eating. Oh my gosh, if I have a bowl of candy in front of me, I'm just going to eat until there's nothing left in the bowl. You could put a giant popcorn bowl full of candy and I would eat it all day long until that bowl was empty.
Yeah.
So part of it is, I think, the dopamine of, ooh, it's a fun little treat,
Yeah.
fun little treat, fun little treat, a little bit of dopamine because my brain is constantly craving that dopamine. And so I find myself pulled to that big time, which is really hard because I like to have little bowls of candy around.
Also the sugar. So I'm a software developer and so is Jesse. And sometimes when I'm coding, like I get stuck and it gets really frustrating and I can't solve it. And I'm like, I need to take a break. So I'll go to the pantry and I'll go get some candy. And I'll do exactly what you said, Jesse. I'll put a bowl of candy like on my desk. And I've even got pictures of this on Twitter. And I'll just keep eating it. And the problem is I get sugar, which helps me focus for a really short time. And then I crash. But then I focus and then I solve the problem. And so I've started to associate whenever I can't solve something, I go and get an ice cream or some candy and then I solve it. And I'm like, this is a really bad cycle because I know it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
But I'm desperate at that point and I'm like, I need to fix this bug. And what am I going to do to fix it?
So how do we fix it?
Yeah.
Becca, how do we fix this problem for us?
Yeah, I see this in my clients, but in a different scenario that I'm sure some of the listeners can relate to of like, when you almost learned conditioning of, oh, when I have this issue, this is what I have, and you associate those things together. And that happens a lot with my clients in like TV. Ooh, when I sit down to watch TV, because it's also not very stimulating for our brains, like I get my fun little snack and then that just becomes, oh, I need the snack to be able to watch TV.
Right.
I need the snack to be able to fix the problem kind of thing. It feels like that. I think finding other things, and maybe it is like, hey, maybe it is I actually give myself the permission to take a break if you can and go do something else that's maybe a little more fulfilling, and that dopamine maybe is lasting a little bit longer than just giving yourself a little burst. Because I feel like sugar as almost like social media where it's like little bits of dopamine. Like when you're doom scrolling, it's cool. I'm getting a little bit of dopamine, but it's not, once you stop doing it, it's not really there anymore. And I think, it's just, you finish it, usually finish, like when I'm doom scrolling, I finish, I'm like, why? And it's the same thing with if you're binge eating, you get done with it and you're like, why did I just do this and eat all of this food and now I don't feel good? And it's the same thing. You like finish doom scrolling, you're like, I don't feel good from this either. Like it doesn't hit the spot. So I think sometimes trying to find other things, and sometimes they might not be quite the same. Because I've heard that from people over there. I can't find anything else that's exactly like sugar. And it's, that might be the case. So finding some other things. So if it's like, hey, maybe I take a 5-minute dance break and listen to a song I really like and dance in my office or whatever, or step outside.
Oh, the music is a good suggestion.
Yeah.
I have a playlist of uplifting, happy tunes or just stuff that really gets the dopamine flowing. And I sometimes put that on. And then I'll find one song which really does it for me, and I'll play that like 100 times.
It's like, repeat, I need to hear that one again.
Yeah. And then one day I'll just be like, no, I can't listen to that song anymore, and it's gone. It's dead to me.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about the intuitive eating part. What does that mean? Does that sort of tie into what we were just saying about trying to find something else to replace the food, or is it just being more conscious of while you're eating food?
I would say part of it's being a little more conscious and aware of why we're eating things, how food actually makes us feel, listening more to like our hunger and fullness cues rather than relying on like calorie counting or macro tracking or like all those external things that don't necessarily align with what your body might actually need in the moment. So it's they describe it as like a self-care framework for eating. And I like to think of it as like removing the shoulds with eating. And I think that's why it's really helpful for ADHDers. Let's remove the neurotypical standards around feeding ourselves and figuring out like what works for you. And that will look different for all of my clients. But I think it helps a lot with removing some of the shame and overwhelm and things like that that come with food. Because so many people are like, oh, I can't meal prep, I'm just a failure. And I'm like, you don't have to meal prep. It's there. If you want to, amazing, go for it. But the vast majority of my clients don't meal plan because it just doesn't work for them. And also from like a sensory perspective, I don't want to eat leftovers that I cooked on Sunday on Wednesday. That's gross.
Oh my gosh.
It's just gross. Anytime someone makes meal prep and they're like, I made my lunch for Monday through Friday, I'm like, you're really eating that on Friday? Sorry if you like, that's so gross to me.
I don't mind leftovers, but Jesse, I think you have a thing, right, with leftovers?
Yeah, it was actually early on when I first got married. Within a few weeks, it was like my wife her family, they did leftovers all the time. In my family, probably because we were all undiagnosed ADHDers, we did not do leftovers. We made a meal, and then after the meal, we threw that out because it's not going to be good the next day. So that was a source of conflict, which there's always like early days of marriage, you're figuring stuff out with each other. But I was like, why did you remake this? This is gross. This is old food. What are you doing here?
Yeah.
And so we had to navigate that, how to figure out, because leftovers to me, it was almost like a foreign concept. It was just like the idea of reusing foods. I think it was, like the sensory issues, like the texture is all quote unquote wrong now. And so like, how can I eat it when the texture is wrong?
Yeah. Or if you microwave certain things, like I can't microwave chicken because it just reheat it. It just doesn't taste the same anymore. My brain is that's wrong and it should not taste like that. I will use my air fryer to reheat food because it like doesn't do the same thing. But yeah, there's some things I don't want to do that. But yeah, it's like removing all of that stuff and kind of exploring with intuitive eating what's going to help me feel good, both mentally and physically, I think is the important part, because traditional diets that focus on especially weight loss usually don't really consider your mental health when you're losing weight. Do all of these things, and a lot of times it's at the expense of your mental health. So
it's a big list of rules.
Yeah.
And that has never worked well for me or a lot of ADHDers.
Yeah. And keeping up with all of them. And then if you do multiple diets, and a lot of times they all have conflicting rules and they're like, wait, am I supposed to do this or am I supposed to do that? Or keeping up with like food journaling and things like that. I tell people, clients, I'm like, you're either like hyper focused on it, you might really like data, and so you're tracking every single thing, and sometimes to the point that it's a little bit of a disordered behavior, or even feeding myself is a lot. So the idea of stopping and writing down and measuring all of my food is just like not accessible to me. And that can usually, for a lot of my clients, if they've done that in the past, there's a lot of shame there because they're like, I couldn't do this. And then usually if a dietitian or somebody like that doesn't understand ADHD, they're just like, just do it. You just have to get over it and do it. And that doesn't work. I was in a Facebook group and that came up. I was in a Facebook group and so I saw someone post something about this, and it was literally, my dietitian said, I just have to do it. And I'm like, what else can I do? And I was just like, can I talk to your dietitian, please? Because there's so many other ways you could do things. Even just like taking a picture might be easier for someone than literally having to type every single thing in or write it down on a piece of paper and keep track of the piece of paper is a lot. And then remembering to bring it if you like have to go into an office or whatever to see them is a lot of executive function that someone might not understand who doesn't work with people that have ADHD.
Yeah. I love that. It's just figuring out what works for you, and you don't have to fit in with just like all the neurotypical, here's how you lose weight, or here's how you be healthy, or here's how you measure stuff.
Yeah.
And I like what you said about taking the pictures and not counting macros. So I don't know exactly what macros are, but I know it's something about, is it like calories or like?
Yeah, it's like you're weighing things and you have a distribution of like protein, carbs, and fat. It's a lot of math, to be honest. And a lot of times what happens is people will just end up eating things repetitively to the point they get really bored and then just say screw it, because then they don't have to do the math. They're like, I don't have to do the math if I just eat the same foods every day. But obviously that gets boring, and then eventually their bad foods or the cheat foods that aren't on their diet plan come creeping back in because they're like, this is boring to eat the same things over and over again. So
I used to use this app where I would take pictures of the food, and I wasn't doing it to lose weight or anything. I was just doing it to try and remember what I ate, because I have another friend who's a dietitian, and she was saying to me the food needs to be colorful. Like, one easy way to figure out if you've had a healthy day is look at the color and make sure there's some greens and some reds and stuff. And so I used to take the pictures of the food to do that. And it was really scary because some days my whole thing would just be like beige in color, like so many carbs. And then I'd also notice I'm eating the same thing every day, like, just because I don't want to think about it.
Yeah.
And also, sometimes I don't mind it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, I could eat that 10 days in a row. That's fine. And then, a bit like the music, on the 11th day, I'll be like, no, I can't look at that anymore.
Yep.
And I need something else.
Right.
Yeah.
But,
I find
like
pictures are nice. And because you can
visual.
also get like a timestamp. And especially if you have your location on, you can see where you were too. It like just helps jog your memory of things of, oh, I noticed if I took pictures of breakfast at 8 a.m. and then my lunch isn't until 3 p.m. and then I maybe eat dinner at 6, and then you're like, oh, I'm binge eating at night. I'm going to be like, yeah, that makes sense to me, because there's some pretty big windows of time that like you're not eating. So at some point, I call it the hunger monster that comes out in the evening when you haven't eaten during the day, whether you're medicated or not. But once you get to that evening time and it's just like you start to relax and or your meds wear off and you're like, I just feel almost insatiable. And it feels like nothing. Even if you're physically full, sometimes I still feel like I need to eat, and it just can be a very frustrating experience. So I always like talk to my clients about like trying to keep the hunger monster away, like so it doesn't show up, kind of thing.
What do you think about fasting? You know how I think a few years ago, intermittent fasting, I guess it's still a thing, but a few years ago,
it was huge.
Around like peak COVID was huge.
Huge.
And I actually tried it for a bit. And for me, it wasn't super strict. It was more like, okay, just don't eat after 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And then just don't eat until the next morning, which is 12 hours. Or sometimes I'd go a bit longer and just wait till lunch.
Yeah.
And for me, it actually was good. I felt a bit more, I don't know, I guess I felt more even.
Okay.
Like mentally.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Do you have a point of view on
I will say that if you do have a history of an eating disorder, that it is not recommended to do intermittent fasting, because that is kind of feeding some of those behaviors. So if anyone's listening who's like, I want to try that, but like you struggle with binge eating, I would not recommend trying it. But I think a lot of dietitians will say that like your loose version of, hey, I'm not eating after a certain time generally. And then, especially if you're eating breakfast in the morning, we like to think of breakfast like breaking the fast. If you're not eating overnight, like if you're not waking up and getting food, you are fasting while you are sleeping. So you can think about it that way. And for some people, I often find, especially if you're skipping breakfast and waiting really late in the day to eat, and you've got this like short eating window, it becomes like a gamified version of I can eat as much food as I want. It's in this time period. And then that's not really it. But our brains do like to be fed regularly throughout the day. That can help with our brain function, especially like eating carbs regularly throughout the day, because that's what our brains use for energy. So we should, if intermittent fasting works for you, great. I think of it too as, is this practical and doable for me in the long term kind of thing, because it's like, for me personally, I wouldn't want to do it because I love breakfast. So it would be really hard for me to skip breakfast or go to get brunch with my friends. And I'm like sitting there sipping black coffee and watching all my friends eat food. And I probably would not be a very happy camper. So I think for thinking about, is this practical and makes sense for me? Because I don't have to think as much about food in some of this capacity. But if it's something that you feel like it's not sustainable, or you notice, hey, this is turning into me like not eating and then binge eating at night, because that kind of mirrors a little bit of that cycle. Yeah. And then from a weight loss perspective, it's not really any different from like traditional calorie restriction, and both are not particularly sustainable for most people long term. So if that's the method you wanted to choose and go down that weight loss path, go for it. But it's not really different than other methods that people use in terms of effectiveness.
Yeah. Earlier you talked a little bit about the shoulds. Oh, I should be doing this or should be doing that. And just like the shame, which I think is such a huge part of ADHD. Undiagnosed, but even if you were diagnosed young, there's just so much years and years of shame of hearing how you should be doing things. And that's not how your brain works. So you didn't do it the way that everyone thought you should do it. And it just becomes this weight that's built up over decades of your life. And so I'd love to hear maybe a little bit more of how you've talked with your clients about shame and maybe how that plays into some of the stuff with nutrition and things like that.
I think some of the shoulds, I will say that I help my clients like navigate through is like, I call them shortcuts, but like processed foods. I should be able to cook everything from scratch. And that's probably, if you want to do that for every meal, go for it. But if that's not a reality for you, that's also okay. Like I use a lot of things like 90-second pouches of rice and rotisserie chicken and even like the individual cups of Greek yogurt, because sometimes just getting the bowl out and the spoon and getting the big container of yogurt out and having to scoop it in the bowl and then having to clean the bowl is too many steps. But if I can just open the container and eat it and throw it away, I'm getting in that food versus having to throw out a whole tub of yogurt because it went bad before I ever got to it. So I think learning what parts of the cooking process do I find more challenging than others, and can we find ways to simplify those things or delegate it? Hey, let's order groceries. If going to the grocery store is too overwhelming for you and you don't enjoy that experience, let's order your groceries. Find things like that, and that can really help just giving people permission to not do what everyone else has told them. Helps remove some of that shame. Yeah, it's okay that I do things differently. And I'm feeding myself. That's the most important part. Like I'm getting fed, and that's what matters. And I think a lot of times
I love what you just said there, because the main thing is that you're getting the nutrition and you're getting food in, and the way you do that like is different for everyone. And sometimes it might cost more in a way, but it costs more, but you save more, if that makes sense. So the example that you used with the yogurt, you're buying individual tubs of yogurt, which is more expensive than buying a big tub. But you're actually, if you bought a big tub, you might just end up throwing that away and also not eating it. So that's wasted. Whereas you've paid a little bit more for the smaller tubs, but you're actually eating it. So you are actually getting more for your money that way. And I have an example with just like the ordering as well. So I find it super overwhelming to go to the supermarket. I really don't enjoy it at all. I just get massive like fog when I go in, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, it's super stressful for me. So I started paying for delivery, and it's the best thing ever because like it costs me to get it delivered, but I end up buying more food that's nutritious that I'm actually eating, and it's spending money, but I'm saving as well because I'm saving stress. Like I'm not having to go through that. And also if I go to the supermarket, I'll end up just buying stuff I don't need. I'll just be like, oh, that aisle, it's got something.
And there's new things in that aisle. Oh, that's on sale. I need that now. Yeah, like my impulse purchases are definitely so much lower when I buy online because I can see the cart adding up, and I'm like, let's go through this and see. And we can pick a couple fun things to add to the list, but we don't need all of these, especially sometimes if I'm ordering late at night. I'm like, you don't need all of the next, I won't order it then. I'll wait till the next morning to click order. And I'm like, let's just double check that what's on this list is what we really need. And sometimes you find you have more energy to actually do some of the prep pieces if that's something you do, where it's like, hey, I might actually have the energy when the groceries get delivered to wash my vegetables and fruit or do those kind of things instead of getting home from the grocery store and you're like, that was so awful. And I'm so worn out, and now I just want to sit on the couch the rest of the day and order food probably. I'm like, I'm just going to order takeout too because that was way too much.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so it's but if you get it delivered, you might actually be able to cook that meal that you bought the ingredients for. And so I think this figuring out where you can save some spoons in the process makes such a big difference.
And frozen vegetables are amazing as well. So I used to buy fresh stuff and I always had to throw it out, and now I buy frozen and it's pretty good. Like I'm fine with it. And I always have a bag of carrots, peas and corn, like just and it's already done. Like I don't have to do anything to it. I just chuck it in the microwave for a minute and it's good. It's so helpful. I have so much frozen stuff.
And the fun little nutrition point is that it is like frozen fruits and veggies sometimes can be even more nutritious than fresh fruits and vegetables because they're like flash frozen at the peak of their nutrition, and then they're frozen when they travel to the grocery store versus fresh produce, and sometimes produce travels really far, is losing its nutrition as it travels. So I think people always think, oh, frozen food and things like that are bad. And it's actually like I might be even getting more nutrition from my frozen fruits and vegetables, and I'm not wasting them, which is even better. And they're usually a little bit less expensive, I find too, which is great. And I cut you off, Jesse.
No, I was just going to say the other thing I was going to mention, Casey Davis talks about rearranging your refrigerator or whatever. Just bring the foods you normally, they'll sit in a drawer and then you don't see them and they disappear. And then when you open that drawer 2 weeks later, you're like, oh, that went bad because it was hidden down here in the corner. Yeah, exactly. The produce graveyard. And so her suggestion is to like put it up in the very visible areas. And so if you have soda in your house, put that in the veggie drawer. You can hide that because when you want soda, you're going to go dig and look for it. That'll be fine. You're not going to forget about the soda. But the veggies, you want that sort of thing out and open. Yep. And it's, yeah, sure, maybe it won't last as long there versus the drawer or whatever, but you're going to see it and actually use it.
Yep.
And that's a lot more important for that stuff because it's the out of sight, out of mind, which is so huge for ADHD. Like, if I don't see it, I'm never going to remember it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. All my like snacks are eye level in my refrigerator. So they're like, when it's snack time, I don't have to really think. They're right there and I just grab them. Where I have a bin in my pantry of like my quick snacks. So there's not a whole lot of thought that it has to go into it. And I also find putting a whiteboard on your fridge too of things you need to use up or remember to use, or even like what meals, if you do plan or pick a couple meals you might make throughout the week. I don't pick a day for mine, but I'll write, hey, here's the 3 meals I bought ingredients for, and then I can pick and I don't have to open my fridge and be like, I got that chicken. What was the chicken going with? I can like just be like, oh yeah, we said we're having chicken fajitas. Then I can just grab those things and make it versus let me try and remember what I said I was making and what ingredients go with it. So it makes it a little bit easier.
Do you set aside time during the week to do that? Or is it just more when you have the thought, you just go scribble it on the whiteboard and go, okay, chicken fajitas?
I usually will do it Sunday or Monday. If I go to the grocery store, I'll try and pick 3 meals. I don't do it every week, but like most weeks I'll try and pick 3 meals that I'm going to make. And I do leftovers, but like for me, I'm like, I can make something and have it like the next day as leftovers. I just can't like prep one thing and eat the same thing over and over again. And that's just, unless I'm hyper fixated on something and then I'm not prepping it, I'm making it every day. Like you said, Marie, until you're like that 11th day and I'm done. I'll get on a kick of something where I'm like, I want a buffalo chicken wrap every single day. And then one day I'm like, I don't want buffalo for a while. So yeah, it's just, I'm not like a super rigid meal planner because my parents never really meal planned. I was like thinking about that the other day. I was like, my parents never really meal planned. So I just don't feel like I need to, especially because I work from home. I can just adapt things and it's just me. So I don't need to like worry about making sure my kids are fed or my partner or any of that. So it's like it makes it a little bit easier. I think having an idea though of what you're going to eat can help, and having a stocked pantry and freezer, I would say, not necessarily fridge, but like frozen items, like frozen veggies. I even get like frozen bags of rice, or chicken nuggets are a great one, or I'll get frozen burger patties, things like that I can just easily heat up. And then I have a lot of like canned things and like sauces and like rice pouches and things in the pantry. So that way, if I haven't planned anything, there's usually something in between my pantry and freezer that like I can pull together to make a meal that's nourishing, but usually does not take more than 15 minutes because unless I'm really in the mood to cook, like I'm not spending more than 15, 20 minutes in the kitchen.
You mentioned having your eye level snacks. I'm just curious, what are some of your go-to snacks?
Greek yogurt, cottage cheese sticks, those little like fruit squeeze pouches would be some of my refrigerated ones. I like a lot of granola bars, nuts. I'm trying to think what else I put in there in my little snack thing. Sometimes some chips, pretzels. I really like pretzels. Trader Joe's.
Oh yeah, pretzels are big in our house too.
I love, pretzels, popcorn, anything crunchy.
Wait, when you say pretzels, are they like little pretzels or the big ones? Because you know the tiny, like the size of a couple of coins.
Like
a little bigger than a quarter or something.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Because sometimes people say pretzels, they mean
like the
those
big soft ones,
right? Like the soft ones. We're talking about like the crunchy ones, right? Okay, yeah, cool.
Yeah, those, or like Tortilla chips, because I like to dip. I like dips. Dips are also, I would say dips are in that snack place too. I'm a big dip person. And like carrots and apples would be another. Anything crunchy.
Nice. That's one of those things I love, like dipping carrot in some sort of, I don't know, like ranch or hummus or something like that is like great. And then I just never think to actually have that. And so I just grab Doritos instead. Not so great. But yeah, I wonder, that's something I should take my own advice of putting like carrots eye level and that sort of thing. 'Cause I do the thing of, opening the fridge and scanning it. And then I'm not seeing the stuff that maybe would, that maybe I would prefer later that I had eaten.
Yeah.
But it's just not what I see in the moment.
Yeah. And that's where that whiteboard can come into, or some of my clients will write like, hey, these
the
are
whiteboard sounds great. I love that.
Here's the snacks we bought this week that I want to eat or try to eat more of. And that can, at least when you go to open the fridge, you're like, oh, carrots and hummus. Oh, that's in here. And instead of being like scanning the fridge and you're like, you might see the carrots and the hummus, but it just doesn't quite like connect in your brain. And you're like,
you cut like the carrots up beforehand. So, because for me, a barrier, like a point of friction would be like I have to go grab the carrot, cut it up, and then by that time I'm like, I'll just grab something else. But if it was already cut up into sticks, or you could buy a bag that's cut up, like that would be so much easier.
We have baby carrots in the States, and carrot matchstick carrots. And then there's also these like crinkly carrots. They're like coins, and they have a fun little texture to them.
Oh, yeah.
I think I can. Yeah. They're sliced? You mean they're already sliced, but they've got the crinkle texture?
Yeah.
Okay. And then it just makes it like a chip.
Yeah.
It's almost like just
exactly. Yeah.
We have one of my clients, one of my clients, she came to visit. She was really excited because she came from a different country to the States. And she was like, I got to try baby carrots finally, because she was so excited because they don't have them in her country. And I was like, that's so cute. But yeah.
I wonder if we have them. I'm going to look out for them next time.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember seeing them, but I'm like,
I haven't been
in the shops for a while.
I'm pretty sure they're just normal carrots that are cut to look like they're really little carrots, but the illusion works for me. So.
Yeah. Oh, really?
I did.
Oh, you mean the top, the tips off?
Yeah,
well, no, they're like rounded.
Yeah, they're like little cylinders.
Oh, we do have them. Yeah. They're little cylinder, like a finger. Looks like kind of that size.
Yeah, it's a finger shape.
Fat finger.
Yeah,
we do have them. Okay, I'm gonna get those. That's a good idea.
They're just so much easier. In 2020, I decided I didn't want to buy baby carrots anymore, and I would buy the big bags of carrots and peel them, but then the peeling stuff would get everywhere, and I would usually be like in a rush to make a snack, so I would just leave a bunch of carrots, like peeled carrots in my kitchen. I was like, this is way too messy. We can just buy baby carrots. It's going to be
sometimes you just okay. Yeah, I'll draw the line here. Baby carrots, I'm going to do that to save the mess and save the hassle, and just be like, I'm going to be eating the carrots hopefully instead of the Doritos.
Yeah, because I eat a lot of carrots, so I was like, I'll buy the whole carrots because it's a little bit cheaper. You're saving $1, and in the grand scheme of things, I think we can probably save that time and use it for something else that it takes you to peel and chop up baby carrots to eat them.
This was such an interesting conversation, and I've got so many tips already to walk away with. Buying baby carrots is one of them, but also just organizing the shelf is another big sort of takeaway for me. But I think the thing I loved the most was just the intuitive eating part. So just being super self-aware and conscious about what's working for me, and not doing what works for everybody else, and just changing it up depending on how I'm feeling. I really love that idea.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for joining us today. This has been such a great chat. Where can people find you on socials if they want to follow your work?
Instagram would be the best place, at ADHD.nutritionist. I'm also on Facebook and Threads, and you can chat with me there too. I'm on TikTok, but I don't really use it. So if you find me there, you won't really see any content. I was going to say thank you so much for having me and talking about this topic, because I think it's really important. And it just, sometimes it gets overlooked a little bit, I feel, or people just don't think about it in the context of ADHD. They're like, it's school and organization and doing my job. And it's literally every part of our lives, including food.
Yeah, totally. Awesome. It was great to chat with you. Marie, how about you? Where can people find you online?
So you can find me on Twitter. I'm at 3 Hour Coffee, spelled out the words 3 Hour Coffee on Twitter, and Llama Life at lamalife.co. And where can they find you, Jesse?
Yeah, first, I just want to remind you that Twitter does not exist anymore.
I'm sorry, I mean X.
It's been a couple of
Do
years
you know
now,
what?
I think.
I refuse to call it X.
As so many people
Yeah.
refuse to call it X.
I didn't even want to
actually one
change
of
it on our
those as well.
website. I was saying to the guys, like, oh, let's just keep it as Twitter, but we ended up changing it.
You can follow me I'm on all the places at ADHD Jesse, mostly probably Threads, and Instagram is where I'm most active. But pretty much if there's a social network, I probably have that handle on it, so you can follow me there. And then my newsletter is at extrafocus.com. Yeah, awesome. Thanks again, Becca. This is great.
Yeah, thanks for
Yeah,
having me.
thank you so much.